We're inching ever so closely to the start of the college basketball season, and I thought, why not give you some of my predictions for this season? Let's do it. Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Drew, better known as RockChalk01, and today I'm going to be giving my Big 12 men's basketball predictions for the 2023-24 season. Yep, this one will be a doozy because instead of 10 teams like it has been in the years past, it'll be 14 teams, which means there is more likely chances that I'm going to get some of these things wrong. But yeah, I'm going to go through my predictions on where teams will be placed 14th through 1st. So yeah, without further ado, let me know in the comments what you guys think. And here's my predictions.
14th, UCF.
Okay, be honest with me. Did you really think they were actually going to be higher than this? 14th, I've got UCF. Now, the Knights had a decent season last year, going 19-14, making the second round of the NIT, and scoring roughly 72 points a game under 8th year head coach Johnny Dawkins. Now, one thing that I was kind of surprised about was that UCF is actually a kind of decent three-point shooting team. They shot it last year at a 36% clip, and I think they will continue that going into this season. The one thing that's really hurting them is that it's basically a completely new roster with transfers and newcomers, and they only have one returner with significant minutes who is a starter, and that is junior guard Darius Johnson. I see them kind of like the 2014 TCU Horned Frogs, where they basically didn't win a game in conference play, and I kind of see UCF in that situation. So unfortunately, I've got the Knights in last.
13th, Oklahoma.
Hate to say it, the Sooners aren't getting their swan song this year before they go to the SEC. 13th, I've got the Sooners, and oh boy, it was kind of a toss-up between them and UCF to see who was going to be last. But ultimately, I think the Sooners will finish just ahead of UCF. Now, last year, my goodness, the Sooners stunk. They were 15-17 last year, averaging roughly 68 points a game under now third-year head coach Porter Moser. Now, the Sooners were a solid defensive team. I will give them credit. They forced a lot of teams to take bad shots. They held them under 45% from the field. But they could not hold on to the ball to save their lives, averaging roughly 13.5 turnovers per contest. Also, they're a really new roster as well. 3 guys returned with significant minutes, and one of them is actually a starter from last season, and that was sophomore guard Milos Uzan. Now, they were dead last year, and they're going to be pretty dang close to being last again this year. However, I think they'll just edge out UCF for that last place spot, so I've got the Sooners in 13th.
12th, Cincinnati.
You know what? I really don't have a good place for Cincinnati. So here you go. 12th place, I've got the Bearcats. Now, a lot of them might be calling blasphemy because, well, Cincinnati had a pretty decent season last year. Cincinnati was 23-13 last year, made the quarterfinals of the NIT, averaged roughly 77 points a game under now third-year head coach Wes Miller. The Bearcats were a solid rebounding team, and I think they'll be a great rebounding team this year, as they've got a lot of guys that are over 6'10" and a few 7-footers. However, their roster is kind of depleted as well, as only 2 guys returned with significant minutes, and both of them were starters. Those guys would be junior forward Victor Locken and senior forward Odi Uguama. I hope I pronounced his name right. But don't worry, Cincinnati, you do pick up an insanely good transfer as they get CJ Frederick, who was originally at Iowa for like 3 years, then went to Kentucky, and now he's at Cincinnati. All in all, I think Cincinnati will kind of struggle in conference play. They'll get a couple wins here and there, but ultimately, since their non-conference schedule is really going to boost their wins and losses, I don't think their conference schedule will do the same. But I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. I'll give them 12th place.
11th, West Virginia.
Oh, country roads, they're going to struggle this year. So in 11th place, I've got the Mountaineers. Now, WVU is going to be different. Very different. Because they don't have their mastermind, Bob Huggins, on the sideline. Which is probably a good thing. But I will say it wasn't a terrible season last year for the Mountaineers, as they went 19-15 last year, made the first round of the NCAA tournament, averaged roughly 76 points per game under now interim head coach Josh Eilert. The one thing that really killed West Virginia last year was they allowed a lot of teams to score. as opponents roughly averaged 71 points per game. They shot very well from the field, shot decently from the three, and had a pretty good free throw line shooting clip. Now, the one thing that's really going to hurt this West Virginia team is Bob Huggins' influence, because this roster is a complete blank slate. No one who had significant minutes returns on this Mountaineer squad. They only had 3 guys returning in total, and all 3 of them averaged 5 minutes or less. All in all, I think West Virginia will do fine with their transfers coming in and as well as their new recruits. But it is a new coaching staff. If Bob Huggins was in charge, I probably would have West Virginia more like 8th or 7th. But I think they'll have a little bit of a dip with Josh Eilert running the reins as the Mountaineers head coach. I'm kind of giving them the benefit of the doubt as well. I've got them in 11th.
10th, Texas Tech.
You know what? I'm just hoping that the basketball team can do better than the football team in Lubbock. 10th place, I've got Texas Tech. Now, the Red Raiders had a difficult season last year. They had to let go of their head coach, Mark Adams, and they really didn't do well in terms of production last year either. They were 16-16 last year. They averaged 74 points a game, and they are now under new leadership under head coach Grant McCasland. Now, Texas Tech, they have a couple downsides to the team last year, which I think they will kind of struggle with again this year. That's 3-point shooting and taking care of the ball. 3-point shooting, they were kind of iffy for me with their 3-point shot because they used to be a lot better. They shot it at a 34.8% clip from 3 this past season. And then turning the ball over, so far they got the highest turnover per game rate as they turn it over roughly 14 times a game. Now, they do have a lot more guys coming back. 4 guys return with significant minutes, one of them being a starter, and that was sophomore guard Pop Isaacs. But they do pick up another good guard from the transfer portal, and they actually went through Big 12 enemy lines to get this one, and that would be the West Virginia transfer Joe Toussaint. Overall, Texas Tech, I think, will kind of struggle in the first year of Grant McCasland. But other than that, I think they would be fine for the near future because McCasland's a good coach. He's got a scheme that really works out very well, and we've seen it actually be succeeded because he was at North Texas, and they are the recent NIT champions. So I think they'll be fine, but I don't think they'll win a lot of games in the Big 12. So I've got them in the top 10. I've got them 10th.
9th, BYU.
They were so close to being in the top half, but I don't think it's going to happen. 9th place, give me the Cougars. Now, BYU looks like they could struggle this year. A lot of people are not having a lot of faith in BYU, but I think they will surprise a lot of teams. Last year, they kind of struggled. 19-15 last year, averaging 75.5 points a game under now 5th-year head coach Mark Pope. Now, rebounding-wise, BYU is pretty good, averaging just under 37.5 rebounds a game. That is solid. The bad side is they turn the ball over like it's a freaking hot potato. Just under 15 turnovers a game. That was their average last year. That could hurt any team in this league if they average that number of turnovers a game. The only thing that really is saving them is that no one really left. They're playing with almost their entire roster. 5 guys return with significant minutes, which also includes their leading scorer from a year ago. And I'm hoping to God I don't mispronounce his name. It's junior forward Fousseyni Traore? Hopefully I pronounced his name right. I doubt it. But yeah, Traore, he's their leading scorer. He's back. So that's a big bonus for BYU. Also, what really helps them is that they get a top recruit in Marcus Adams Jr., who was originally at Kansas, then at Gonzaga, and now he's finally at BYU. So good for him. But I think BYU will be a lower to middle tier team in the Big 12. Although I don't have them at the halfway point, I think they'll do better than a lot of people think. So give me the BYU Cougars in 9th place.
8th, Oklahoma State.
You know, this could be a potential sleeper team to do some damage in the Big 12. I'm being honest. 8th place, I've got Oklahoma State. The Cowboys had a strong finish to the season, in my opinion, and they made a postseason berth, even though it wasn't the NCAA tournament. But still, really solid for them. They finished the 2022-23 campaign with a 20-16 record. They made it all the way to the quarterfinals of the NIT. Their scoring really hurt them in this season, averaging just under 68 points a game under now 7th-year head coach Mike Boynton. As I said, they struggled to score. They also put up really bad shots, in my opinion. They shot 43% from the field and 31% from three, which, that's a pretty bad three-point shooting percentage. Also, really didn't take care of the ball as much, as they averaged 14 turnovers a game. So they got to get those numbers improved. But they do have some high notes, as they do have 2 guys returning with significant minutes, and also one of them being a starter, and that was their leading scorer last year, senior guard Bryce Thompson. But overall, I think Oklahoma State will have a decent season. Now, they are on the lower end of the pack, but I could see them being a dark horse as a top 4, maybe top 3 team if all the puzzle pieces fit. But I don't see that really happening, so I'm giving the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to say that Oklahoma State finishes in 8th.
7th, Iowa State.
Hopefully this season, it ain't a whirlwind for Iowa State. 7th, give me the Cyclones. Now, I think they'll do a lot better because the numbers really don't help them in their case to be 7th this year, but I think it will. The Cyclones last year finished 19-14 and made it to the first round of the NCAA tournament. However, they really couldn't score, averaging under 68 points a game under now 3rd-year head coach TJ Otzelberger. Now, defensively, Iowa State was one of the best scoring defenses in the country, holding teams to under 63 points a game. So that's going to be a real big booster for them this season, is beating teams defensively. Also, Iowa State has 3 guys returning with significant minutes last season, and one of them being a starter, and that would be sophomore guard Tamin Lipsey. I think TJ Otzelberger's squad is going to be pretty good. I think they'll do better than last season. I think they'll make the NCAA tournament. Although the 7th place finish might seem like blasphemy, I would say consider it lucky and move on. So I've got the Cyclones in 7th.
6th, TCU.
In my opinion, these guys might be the dark horse to win the conference. Just saying. 6th place, I've got TCU, and I think the Horned Frogs, even though I have them 6th, they could do a lot more damage than a lot of people might think. Let's just take a look at what they did last year. 22-13 a year ago, made it to the 2nd round of the NCAA tournament, averaged just over 75 points a game under now 8th-year head man Jamie Dixon. Defensively, they were really good, especially when they were wanting to force turnovers. And I think that's going to be their strong spot for them this year, as they forced over 15 turnovers a game, which is really solid. The one bad thing, they couldn't shoot free throws to save their lives. They had freaking Mike Miles, who shot roughly 85% from the charity stripe, and as a team, they shot under 70%. That's bad. But don't you worry, TCU, you've got a lot of guys coming back, and 4 of them return with significant minutes, with 2 of them being starters and seniors. Those would be forwards Emmanuel Miller and Chuck O'Bannon Jr. Also, you did a little poaching from the Big 12 members, as you took a couple key transfers from those teams, as you took Ernest Uday away from Kansas and Avery Anderson III away from Oklahoma State. But overall, I think TCU has a pretty solid year. I think they'll finish above the halfway point, and who knows, I think they might surprise teams and they could finish maybe 2nd, maybe 3rd, maybe win the whole thing if they get lucky. But for right now, I've got to say that TCU, they finished 6th.
5th, Kansas State.
Even though they'll be good, this is the only time I will show generosity. 5th place, I've got Kansas State. Oh boy, they surprised the heck out of me last year because Kansas State did really freaking well. And I think they'll do the same this year. Last year, Kansas State finished 26-10, made it all the way to the Elite 8 before falling to Florida Atlantic on their quest for a Final Four victory. And they scored a lot, averaging just over 76 points a game under now 2nd-year head man Jerome Tang. They were really good passing the ball. My gosh, Jerome Tang's IQ on the offensive side of the ball when making sure that they had the extra pass was perfect, as they averaged roughly 16 to 17 assists a game, which, that's a lot. Also, defensively, Kansas State was really well guarding the three-point line. A lot of teams really struggled to make three-point shots against K-State, and they held opponents to under 31% from three, which is really good. Although they lose two guys to the draft with Keontae Johnson and Marquise Noel, they do have three guys returning with significant minutes, and all of them are starters. Those three guys being junior guard Cam Carter and senior forwards David Nagesson and Naquan Tomlin.
Hi, post-editing Drew here. It is now 2 because Naquan Tomlin just got arrested and he pretty much is going to get himself kicked off the team for this. So, yeah.
To add insult to injury, Kansas State got a big transfer portal pickup with Arthur Kaluma coming to Manhattan from Creighton. Yeah, Kansas State looks good to finish in the top 5, and I've got them with that top 5 finish in 5th place.
4th, Texas.
Although they're going to move conferences next season and they'll have to worry about Kentucky, these guys will have something to say in the Big 12. 4th place, give me the Longhorns. Texas looks good. Simple and to the point. They were the Big 12 tournament champions last year, and for good reason. Texas last year finished 29-9, went all the way to the Elite 8 last year, averaging over 78 points a game under head coach Rodney Terry, who is now in his first full season. They were a really good offensive team. They knew how to spread the floor, feed the post, kick it out for three. They were shooting roughly 48% from the field the entire season, and that was really good for them. The only downside that they really had was they got out-rebounded almost every game. They averaged roughly 34 rebounds a game, which isn't bad, but more teams averaged like 35, 36 a game, and that really hurt Texas in the long run. Now, although they lose incredible guys like Christian Bishop, Timmy Allen, and Marcus Carr, they do return 4 guys with significant minutes, and 2 of them with significant starting roles. Those 2 guys being junior guard Tyrese Hunter and senior forward Dylan DeSue. Now, Texas picked up 2 big recruits, one from the transfer portal and the other from just the recruiting class itself. The portal, that would be Max Abmas from Oral Roberts, and then from the recruiting trail, they got Chris Johnson, who's a really good 4-star guard who originally committed to Kansas. I think he's got a better fit in Austin. Texas could do some damage in the conference, and they could win it all if they really wanted to. I could see them potentially winning another Big 12 tournament and go back-to-back that way, but I don't see them finishing in the top 3. I think they'll have a couple key misses here and there, and a couple non-conference games that could go in favor of the opponent. So, giving the benefit of the doubt, I think they'll be okay. I think they'll have a good run in March. Give me the Longhorns in 4th.
3rd, Houston.
Hello, Houston. Welcome to the Big 12. Please don't kill all of us. 3rd place, give me the Houston Cougars. Now, a lot of people are going to be absolutely shocked about this, and they're probably telling me, Drew, what the hell are you smoking? Because a lot of people are probably thinking that Houston will finish as the Big 12 runner-up this year, and a lot of people are also predicting Houston to win it, which to then I ask the question, what the hell are you smoking? I think Houston will be good. Bar none. They are a talented squad, and they're coming off a bunch of highs these last 3 seasons. Especially last season. They finished 33-4, won the American regular season crown, made it all the way to the Sweet 16. They were a number 1 seed, and they scored a lot, but they just averaged just under 75 points per game under now 10th year head coach Kelvin Sampson. This Houston Cougars team, you might not score on them. Simple. They had one of the best defenses in all of college basketball last season, and I think it will continue. They held teams to under 58 points a game while holding teams to under 37% from the field and 28% from 3. That's bonkers. Oh, and don't get me started on the roster. They have 6 guys returning with significant minutes from a year ago. 2 of them were starters. Those would be senior guard Jamal Sheed and senior forward Juwan Roberts. Oh, and add insult to injury, they got LJ Cryer from Baylor in the transfer portal. All in all, I would not be surprised if Houston ends up winning the frickin' conference, but I think there's going to be a couple hiccup losses that Houston has. They also play Kansas twice, which I think they'll end up splitting that, and then they'll lose a couple ticky-tack games here and there. That's really going to hurt their record. But I think they'll still be pretty good enough to have a top 3 finish in the league. So I'm going to say Houston, 3rd place.
Second, Baylor.
Last year I had high hopes for Baylor. They kind of proved me wrong. This year I've got high hopes for them again. Don't ruin it. Second place, give me Baylor. Now the Bears kind of struggled late. They were not good in the latter part. I would say after like February 5th was when everything went downhill for Baylor. Because they were like top 2 team in the conference, and then whoa, they fell, and I think they finished like 4th. But they did pretty well. They were 23-11 last year. They made it to the second round of the NCAA tournament. They could score. They averaged roughly 77 points a game under now the 21-year head man, Scott Drew. One key takeaway was Baylor's three-point shooting. Now, they do have a lot of guys who shot a lot of threes. They are now gone. I think they will still have that high clip and be one of the best three-point shooting teams in the conference. They shot roughly 37% last year. I could see that clip being around there again. Now, they do have a lot of guys coming back. 5 Baylor Bear players coming back with significant minutes, and one of them being a starter, and that would be the senior Jalen Bridges. Now, Baylor, their season, I think they'll be fine. They will have some good wins over some quality teams. I think the non-conference games, if they can pull off a squeaker against Michigan State or beat a Duke at Madison Square Garden, I think that'll help boost their season, and, they could go really far going into March. I think that'll happen, and I think they'll be just close to winning another conference title, which will be their 3rd in 5 years. So, ultimately, give me the Bears in 2nd place.
First, Kansas.
You could call it bias, you could call it BS, I don't care. But this team could be dangerous. So first place, give me the Kansas Jayhawks. And although they were the defending champions last year, they kind of struggled to really defend their title. But they did win some hardware anyway. They were 28-8 last year, won the Big 12 regular season crown. They made it to the second round of the NCAA tournament. They were averaging just over 75 points a game under the 21st year head coach, Bill Self. I mean, shooting-wise, KU was shooting at averages of every Bill Self team, really, as they were shooting just under 47%. Defending the three was their big help, as they were holding teams to just a little above 31%, which is pretty good for them. Now, KU does have 4 guys coming back with significant minutes, and 3 of them being starters. That would be junior forward KJ Adam and senior guards DeJuan Harris and Kevin McCullough. But recruiting-wise, KU did what KU does best, and that is get guys to come play for Bill Self's scheme. And the recruiting-wise, Elmarco Jackson is going to be KU's top freshman, in my opinion. A lot of people think Johnny Furphy will be it. I'm not too behind it yet, but he could totally surprise me and become the great Australian that KU really needs. And then from the transfer portal, you got Nicholas Timberlake from Towson. And then you got the #1 transfer in the country, Hunter Dickinson, coming to KU from Michigan. But with all the recruits, with the transfers, with all the guys returning, and a lot of them knowing Bill Self's scheme since they played a couple games in the summer, I think they will do just fine to squeak out another Big 12 regular season crown, which would actually be a three-peat for KU. So with that said, give me the Jayhawks as my Big 12 champion. All right, that's going to do it for my Big 12 men's basketball predictions for the 2023-2024 season. Oh man, that was a lot. But let me know in the comments what you guys think. Also, don't forget to leave a like, share, and subscribe, and push that notification bell. Tell your friends about these videos, and I should see you again when the next one comes out. But until then, have a good day. Never ever bring exotic dancers to the field house, and I'll catch you on the flip side. Peace.